The Milo's Mods, ladies and gentlemen. So this is another episode of Blaster Jack. This is called On a Budget. Okay. And what gave me the idea for this video is that there's a lot of new people in the community that buy things that they really don't need. There are certain things that I say everybody should have, and then there's some things I say people don't need or there's really no logical reason to have them. Okay, but let's begin, shall we? First thing is, when you're new, the first thing that you're gonna buy is a blaster of some sort, obviously. Something like this one, something like this one, or something like this one. Okay. Now, when you start out, you're not going to want to dump a ton of money into the community, and I get that. So start off simple with like a decent blaster. This is a Nexus Pro X. You can get these at Walmart all day long for $50. So that's pretty cheap. That's actually a steal of a deal. This blaster is 200 FPS right out of the box. So which is like the new norm, I guess, if you want to call it that. The A on there, that's $25, and that does 160 out of the box. The X-Shot Bullpup is $35, and it does 140. Kind of see my point there? So now that you found a cheap enough blaster you can afford, okay, depending on what group you play is to exactly how much you want to tune it, okay? Now, with this blaster here and the Aeon, the best way to tune them is, Dartzone just released the spring kits for them, which is great and all that, but the spring kits are $10. What if I told you there's a way to tune this blaster for $1? You'd say, you're insane.
He ain't.
No, what you do is you just put a 2-inch brass spacer in, and there you go. That's 230 FPS. And keep this in mind, most clubs, they play, their caps are either between 200 to 250 in most clubs in the United States. There's some clubs that go much higher. Our club does 400 plus. But we set it at 300 plus, which is no speed restriction anyway. So it is what it is. But so the other thing that a lot of new players mess up on is optics. And Milo and I, we've played a long time. We've played for 5 years. And I'll tell you right now, we always just use iron sights. We've always used iron sights.
There's no sense of going out buying a $4,000 scope for a $20 gun. It's pointless.
Right, exactly. There's no need to go spend, $100 on a scope or a sight or whatever, for a $50 blaster. In my opinion, that's just bad thinking. That's bad spending,
Yep.
You could save that $100 and buy more parts with it, or hell, you could buy another blaster. Okay, like in my videos, you'll see sights like these on a lot of my blasters. You know what these are?
Chinese sights.
Just cheap little Chinese sights that I got off of like AliExpress, off of Wish, off of Containment Crew, or hell, even in some of the Chinese blasters I get, they come with sights like these. And I always just hold on to the sights because, well, I'll use them as decoration for other blasters for video. I don't actually run these in games. Okay?
Nope. It's just plain out iron sights.
Yeah, it's just plain out iron sights. The reason why we don't do that is for several reasons. One, it's not a real firearm. Okay, and just my personal opinion, I know I'm going to get roasted for this, which is fine, but unless it's a real steel firearm, there's no need to put $100 sight on it or anything like that. If you feel as though your blaster needs a sight, by all means, go buy an airsoft sight. Airsoft sights are pretty cheap. They're like $20 usually. And they got plenty of nice ones on Amazon you can buy for like $20, $25. And that's if you need a sight. But I don't play with sight. Milo doesn't play with sight. There's several people that don't use sights. Most experienced players don't use sights. Seriously.
I find it pointless.
And the reason being is safety glasses or safety goggles or face masks, if you will. They fog up. Can you imagine looking through a sight and having your eyesight distorted because your mask is fogged up and you're trying to see through a scope?
It sucks.
To give you an idea, when they train people in the United States Army to shoot and qualify, they have to qualify with their gas mask on. Okay, that really distorts your field of vision. It really distorts everything. It makes it that much harder to shoot, or at least be accurate. I mean, yeah, you can sit there and shoot all day long, but you can't see anything because you're all fogged over. You see what I mean? That's why you really don't need a sight. You do want to invest in good safety glasses. Safety. Eye Pro is like one of the big things. You have to have good Eye Pro. Me personally, I don't trust any of the safety glasses that comes in the blasters. And yeah, I know that that's how it is. But me personally, I would much rather go out and spend money on Eye Pro than to use the ones in the boxes. I'm not saying you can't, but I would much rather trust my eyes to something that I know is good quality Eye Pro.
Yep.
And that's exactly how it is. Now, another thing to save you money is that, let's say you're tuning an MK4, although God only knows why, but let's say you're tuning an MK4, which I tuned mine not too long ago. There's all kinds of kits out there for that blaster. There's one kit out there that costs a pretty decent chunk of change. And it's a nice kit, and I won't take anything away from the person who built the kit. But the MK4 is mostly metal parts to begin with. Right? It's got a metal ramrod, base, plunger head, plunger rod, catch. That's most of it right there. The dart gate's plastic. I don't know why they didn't change out the gate, but that's them. But that's all metal. And a general rule of thumb is if it's metal parts in a blaster, you really don't need to change them out. Okay, so people that spend, and buy plastic kits, for their blaster or whatever, because they saw a modification video on YouTube, and they see the blaster doing 400, which, yeah, that blaster is capable of doing 400. So they'll go out and they'll buy a $180 blaster. They'll turn around and they'll spend however much for this part kit, $50 or whatever it costs. And then they'll do the modification, but they'll have no way to check it because they don't have a chronograph. That's something you need as a chronograph. You don't need all the fancy parts in the beginning. All you need is a nice budget blaster to start off with, and then you can tune it yourself. Now, if you're going to tune a blaster cheaply, because I had the experience to do it on a lot of blasters will do it. The easiest way to do it is to rebarrel it and maybe put in a bigger spring. And you'll increase performance right there. Like I did that with my MK4. That's all I did was I just put a bigger spring in it and better barrel. And that thing pops 300 all day long and then some. Which is great. Another thing that you want to do to save money is that these are the magazines that the Nexus and X-Shot Bullpup come with. You can actually use these in both blasters, by the way. So, now, if you have a few extra dollars, invest in some of these talents. Okay? But you don't need fancy scopes. You don't need all kinds of fancy mod parts. They're nice to have, but you don't need them. Okay? Most of the tuning that I've done
has been very cheap.
Yeah, as cheaply as humanly possible, and I've still gotten really good results. But then again, that's where experience comes in. And I am not the most experienced person in the world. Trust me, there's people that are better off at it than I am. There's several people that are better off at it than I am that I can think of. But that's just it. If you want to save money, there's ways to save money. You don't need this. You don't need all kinds of fancy add-on parts or body kits or anything like that. And there's been plenty of times where Milo and I, we've gone into battles and we've been shot out of the house by a $50 blaster.
I mean, it kind of stinks sometimes, but
yeah, especially when you're running like a $200 blaster and they turn around and shoot you out of the house with a $50 blaster, you feel ashamed.
Yeah.
And you should at that point, but it is what it is, because that all comes down to skill of the player too, more than anything else. But like I said, there's a bunch of ways to do it on a budget. What you do is that you can start off using these. If you need a dump pouch, go get one of those little drawstring bags that are like little cheap cloth bags, that have the little drawstrings on the like little teeny book bags. You go get one of those. You can put your mags in there, you put your extra darts in there, and then there you go. Just mount it to your belt somehow. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. You don't need to spend $10 on a dump pouch or anything like that. You don't need all that stuff. Not when you're starting off, no, because you may not even you're not even sure if you're going to stay or not. So therefore, I always say to people in the very beginning, start off with a budget in mind and stick to it. Always live within your means. Don't make yourself poor thinking about buying another blaster or whatever. No, And if you want to get a chronograph, which I suggest everybody in the community should have one. I have one, right? And I have one. In fact, I just bought a brand new one because my other one died after 4 years of use. You know what I mean? That's the number one tool that everybody should have, but not many people need that.
Amen to the chronograph.
And some people, like me personally, this is the way I feel. Once you buy your second or third blaster and you tuned it, buy a chronograph.
Yep.
So that way you can see your results. Because if not, what are you going to do? Shoot yourself in the hand and say, ow, oh, well, that feels like so much. How are you going to know? Everybody's pain tolerance is different. Give you an idea. I shot myself with a Mega XL dart one time in the hand using the HPA shells, the 40 Max shells. Shot myself in the hand because I can't chronograph the Mega XL. It's so big. So I shot myself in the hand. I said, oh, wow, that feels like 200. It wasn't 200. It was 150. And I had been playing for 5 years. I mean, great, I was only 50 FPS off, but you get the point. You can't do that. Another thing that you don't want to do is post numbers when you have no proof to back them up. But that's another story. But like I said, if you're going to start out on a budget, just buy a blaster like this, buy an X-Shot or buy this one, and learn. Take your blaster out before you take it to a game, play with it, practice with it, to see how good you are, And you don't need a sight. You don't need, all the fancy add-on parts. You just don't. Not when you're starting off. Later down the road, you may, and another thing is if a blaster has mostly metal parts in it, why would you change them back to a plastic part? That makes no sense. Granted, it'll make the blaster lighter. You might get better performance. Then again, you may also get a lot of inconsistencies too. I mean, so you'll be fighting that all your life too. Another thing that you want to do to save yourself money is go out and buy an O-ring kit. A big O-ring kit's like $15 on Amazon. It's absolutely great. There's 1,001 ways to save money. Just by buying certain things you don't need. And there's 1,001 ways to improve your blaster, with doing the bare minimum possible. I mean, I think on my MK4 build, the whole tuning, the amount of parts I dropped to it was maybe $20. So, to get a 300 FPS blaster for $20 worth of parts and then whatever the cost of the blaster is, I'm down for that. But I've been doing this all the time now. I tune everything as cheaply as possible so that way I can save my money and use it towards other projects. That's all it is, and if you learn how to do it cheaply, then you can save your money for other things, or other blasters or other parts or whatever. And if you're going to go buy Talon magazines, which I suggest everybody does, and you don't have $80 bazillion to buy whatever, well, next time you order a spring from Out of Darts, which is like $8.
Order a Mag.
Yeah, granted, the price of shipping is not going to go up. All it's going to do is whatever. See, what I think of mags is basically add-on items.
Yep.
And when I order from Out of Darts or someplace like that, the only things I usually order are springs, barrels, and magazines, and sometimes darts. Yeah. That's pretty much what the mod shops in the U.S. get from me in sales. I mean, but you don't need a million things. You know what I mean? You can do it on a budget. There's 1,000 ways to do it cheaper than what most people do. And if you're going to do some of these modifications that you saw on the internet somewhere, don't talk about what kind of numbers you have if you don't have a chronograph, because you will get caught on that stuff quicker than shit. And people will jump all over you.
Dinky.
I've seen it happen. But in any event, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching on Modding on a Budget. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Milo's Mods signing off.